Hi everyone, welcome to An Hour with LawSikho, today's version. And I am Ramanuj Mukherjee. With me I have Abhyuday Agarwal. Of course, Abhyuday and I are co-founders of iPleaders. And today we are going to talk about our journey, especially Abhyuday's journey, and also about Abhyuday's book, which is not a startup anymore. This book is obviously about iPleaders, and we are going to, and it has a lot of history about, about how we started and how we overcome different challenges. And it will be really excellent. I mean, really looking forward to discussing with Abhyuday about how he wrote his book, what went into the process, and also about various things that we worked together and overcame together, the challenges we together overcame in iPleaders. So a very welcome, a warm welcome to everyone. And hi, Abhyuday.
Hi, Ramanuj. Thanks for inviting me on this. And hi, everyone. Thank you for coming online. I am pretty excited for today's conversation. It's a little different from our usual conversations, which a lot of times are about law. And this one's going to be a lot more about organization building. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, before we go into anything else, why don't you tell us a little about your book? What made you write this book? What is it all about?
Right. So, after a certain stage of growth in any startup, what happens is that so when you decide to launch your startup, you want to get your initial few customers, and once you've done that, you've got your initial bit of sales. I have noticed a lot of entrepreneurs, and that included us. Okay, for us, the top problems then became that do we have enough revenues for the next month to pay our rent, salaries, bills on time? And I think it was a good 2 or 3 years for which our entire focus became on survival, because we once our first course, the diploma in entrepreneurship administration and business laws, once it was successful, and once people were taking it up, we had decided to sort of expand a little bit. We hired 4 or 5 people, and after that we just realized that it was a month to month, hand to mouth sort of a game. And this happens a lot of times with startup entrepreneurs. And what happens in the process is a lot of times the connect with the idea behind the business, the passion gets lost. Okay, so the book is about, now we can say that now many entrepreneurs think that at that stage, venture capital is what will make a difference, and venture capital will solve their problems. But it may or may not be the answer to that, to your business at that stage. Ramanuj, have you been able to hear me from what I've been?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly. So basically, for a lot of people, we have seen, we have seen our peers, our friends starting companies, getting initial traction. Our students, many of them, since we are running a course around entrepreneurship, we have seen many people starting up, getting an initial traction, and therefore somewhere maybe a year down the line or at a point where you already got your initial success is difficult to define, but you are a sort of a viable business, that you have an income, you have an outflow, you have a team, you have an office, and every month revenue is coming. At that stage, we see that people sort of fizzle out, or they really struggle to go to the next level or figuring out what is the next level of the game. In fact, I think this is what you are talking about, right? This is
Right. And you can say, that we don't have professional education, professional management education. We've not done our MBAs, so we should know these things. I mean, how to grow the business. But actually, even in B schools, the knowledge that is imparted, that's what at least I've been reading about. It is about how to get top profile executive jobs. So what the book is about is actually hands-on operations and growth-related work. So as you said, Ramanuj, that at a certain stage, the enthusiasm fizzles out or the growth fizzles out, and you start running, a stable kind of business. But where is that kind of 10% month on month growth, that kind of growth that you expect? So this book, and every time then you try to shoot for that, you realize that something that you had already built, that is getting broken, and your attention is brought back to what was once running when you were focusing on it. So that was a problem we were dealing with for a long time in our own company. And there was a point in time when
Just to add to put some numbers to what you're saying, we have had years when we had more than 100% growth, and there have been years on which we had 20% growth with a lot of difficulty. And how do you say that? Like, I don't really think that just because you're having a 20% growth in a year, like, to be honest, one of the years where we had 20-25% growth, I felt that a lot of work happened in that year, which set up the next level of growth in the coming months. So it's not always about the number that you can see on the Excel sheet, but sometimes, you are working on things which will take time to um take shape and start generating revenue. Just to give one example, our blog, iPleaders blog, has an annual unique user of like close to a crore now, something around 80 to 90 lakhs. And it's something that we have not been able to monetize till now. And while it takes money to keep the blog afloat, to keep it running, to keep the quality, get the quality higher up. We have to appoint editors. We have to spend on the server. We have to work on redesign. There are a lot of things that goes into keeping it alive and keeping it running while you are not monetizing it right now. This kind of thing also happens. So it's not necessary that growth is related to only money.
Yeah, that is true. But a lot of times there were years where we forget about the numbers, where we knew that all we are doing is trying to manage what's going on, and then we were figuring out how can we start new courses, and we tried also, but then sometimes we saw that the growth wasn't there. So I mean, from that perspective, like, you would know that there are years where even the long term initiatives that are started, we don't see, you may not see a tangible uh, progress. Okay, it may not always translate to numbers. There are many long-term projects which may take 2-3 years to even start bearing some kind of results, or even longer. Okay, but that is important, that at least you have a sense that this is going towards some kind of growth. Now the challenge the book is designed to tackle is this: that if you've reached somewhere and you want to go, first thing is that for founders it is very important to stay connected with the original passion that made them start out. Like, for me, it happened that there was a certain part of law and teaching law and sharing it with people that inspired me. And over a period of time, I got sort of disconnected with it as I got more into organization building, management, and operations. And then it took me some time before I could rediscover that connect. Okay, now what I realized is that as founders, if people can stay connected, if the founder stays connected to what enabled them to start the business. Now, what enabled them to start the business is not a moment in the past when you had your business idea. It is that desire to actually start and create something which makes a difference. Now, at that time, there was one idea, but over the course of time, as market realities change, your customers' preferences may change, the environment changes around you. If you are connected to that kind of passion, you will constantly keep having a flow of new ideas in your mind. If you are not connected to it, your idea never, or all, like, it will always evolve. It will never be that one idea which was the only idea that your business works on. It is seldom the case. An idea evolves over time, new things get added, it gets sophisticated, which is happening with our courses so much now. Like, we started with primarily practical knowledge driven courses, and now with LawSikho diplomas, we are moving into exercise-based courses where we give people tasks. So now all that happens after a whole set of experiments you do in the market, trial and error and learnings are complete. But
there's a cycle that goes on, right? You launch products, you launch services.
Yeah, but if you lose that connect to the passion that initially led you to start up, growth stops, because you'll be scrounging for ideas. And more than how is that felt? You realize that when you realize that there is no inspiration left anymore to move on, and moving onwards, just everyday survival becomes a drag. And this is a real problem that many founders face. I've faced it personally.
Absolutely. I think everybody faces it. I faced it, and I don't know any founder who has not faced this. That you started with a vision, with a passion, and then you start seeing it materialize, and then you have reached somewhere, and then you don't know how to go forward because you're not connected with that passion anymore. So I think that's a very excellent uh, observation and the real problem area for most founders. Even if you have not faced it, you might be facing it now or later. So, but tell us about a little bit about your book. Like, what made you write this book in the first place? Like, why decide to write a book on such a unusual subject?
So the real story is pretty interesting. I was reading something about I was reading about the environment, and I wanted to write a fiction book on the environment. Okay, but what happened suddenly was that I was meeting a friend and I was sharing certain ideas I had, and then I realized that, oh my God, there is this thing I must write about organization building and about my experiences at iPleaders. And there was a very interesting turn of events that made this happen. So, we had hired our current sales head Ratul in his position, and when he came to our business, he has had 20 years of experience working earlier at various other companies, banks and education companies, leading education companies. He said that you got to have your documentation complete and all of that. Okay, and he used to make some very fancy, good-looking tables, and his presentation was very nice. And I used to think that there were at least 3 or 4 events in time prior to him when I commenced these exercises, and I could never round them up. Like, I could never have a complete process work in the company. I would always get an idea and I would make something which was a 10% of a process, and I would think that that would be sufficient. At that time, I thought that that's the entire process that I have, and I would think that the company can run on the basis of it. It never really materialized. So I used to give up then, and what we had was a company running because it was people were driving it and running it. It was running because of that, but not because of systems or processes.
It was running on individuals fighting and let us make this happen kind of determination.
Drive or motivation that was running it, but it wasn't supported by any systems or processes. Forget technology, like even human systems, they were not there. Now, and what I realized was what I had was piecemeal systems, and what I had to do was sort of combine them and make them work. And interestingly, I was at that time participating in an educational program at Landmark. It was called the Effectiveness Seminar, which sort of had which had a detailed methodology on how you can conceptualize and build and grow projects. And I could actually see our entire business and different verticals that we want to build as a project. And there I was practicing then that how can I actually make our processes complete and workable for the different teams we had. And at that time, you had made the move to Goa. So there were a lot of gaps in communication that we saw, like things that were coming to your plate that you were handling, which I was supposed to handle. Things that were coming to me, but you were supposed to handle. And a lot of that actually came to the forefront, and it got ironed out also. And then I could actually see what it is that I need to handle. And when I saw that, I applied, I really discovered certain ways which could be applied to business, which were very different from the educational program. It applied to any kind of project in life. But I discovered in real life when I applied the learnings to our customer support team, our course administration teams, I could actually see how to make a process work and from scratch. Like there was a time when we used to have one person where we never had anyone. Like in our first 2-3 years, we did not have a dedicated job position for somebody who ran operations of a course. We had a customer support person or a co-founder who would look at customer support, but later on we had one team member who would spend half their time on operations other than customer support. And later on, after I actually started doing this exercise, I really saw that there were probably 9 or 10 tasks that a person had to do, which earlier one person used to do half time and that person had one other person to do it. And when I realized the gamut of tasks that were there, I actually decided to put in a new methodology and see what kind of resources are required to hire them. So actually, I did a pilot in our customer support team. I did a pilot in our course administration team. And then I took it to other aspects. And there I discovered certain things, that what are the elements that make this work. It could be dividing work. It could be dividing your organization into teams and departments. A lot of times we don't do that. It could be just having clear designations and reporting structures for people. It could be having metrics for different kinds of work that people do. The entire methodology that goes into making work doable. That is what I could discover. And what happened after that was that I realized that I could take on new things and make that work doable again. Okay, so that experience was so profound that I thought this is worth writing about. And then I chose to write this book. And there was also a Kindle publication contest that Amazon was running, so I submitted it for that. Yeah, that's how the journey was.
So basically, starting something, when you just start a new company, a new startup, you go at it full blast, you do everything that is needed, you work 24/7, and whatever, anything that falls down, you are like constantly juggling and keeping things in the air so nothing falls.
Right.
But it's a juggling, and it's a quite a tough experience, and you cannot keep doing this forever. Even if you manage to do it for a very long time, what happens is that your growth stops because you are not able to focus on growth because there are so many things you are juggling. So for an entrepreneur, this is critical for starting, because when you are starting, you cannot start with all systems in place, because you are discovering what the system should be in the first place, where you need your time, your effort, your energy. But once it is discovered and it's working, it's time to delegate to somebody else. And it's a very obvious thing to do. And everybody will say that, yes, you need to delegate and you need to build systems, goes without saying. But it's actually, in reality, a tough thing to do. Very difficult thing to do. And your book is about this, that how do you start, like once after the initial bit of things are figured out and there's a stable business and there's revenue coming in and you know things, you have a team. How do you delegate things? How do you build systems so that you can focus on the next step of growth? Is that correct?
Correct.
And you're saying that your experience was so profound of discovering this that you decided to write about it.
Right. And I also realized that this was something that could be followed repeatably. The word delegate is something we use loosely, and it definitely communicates something. But what all is involved in delegation is crazy. The kind of stuff that you are required to do to be able to delegate effectively is huge. And I realized that because delegation a lot of times used to fail miserably. We had a time when we had a huge, for example, we had a huge content team and huge content costs, but that was not reflecting in the improvement on the product. So I realized that delegation is not really as easy as it is said. And
absolutely, I remember a time when you had this 4 people team,
yeah,
who were all working on content, and they were all good lawyers, young lawyers, but good people. And
I didn't know how to get that team to be effective, and that was because delegation was not planned. Like, I could delegate, but how do I delegate in a way that the work gets done in the way that it's required? That was the challenge. And
initially, we thought that it's just a training problem. We have to train people right, then they'll be able to work like us. But I think that was a big mistake. Like, thinking that it's a training problem. It was a system problem, not a training problem.
Yeah. And usually, so I've been noticing as the company is growing, and I wonder how people, Ramesh, is it possible to just keep your video on, because it's just easier, enables me to focus better?
Yeah, but actually the bandwidth on my side is less. So if I also...
Sure. Okay, you can switch it off then. Okay, so initially I used to wonder, like there are so many companies which have 500,000 team members, and how do these companies run? Like, The founders wouldn't be aware of so many things that the companies do. And then I realized that one of the pitfalls of the way we were delegating was that we were always trying to find people who think like us, who are similar to us, and all of that. And I realized that that might not be the best way to find people, because people want certain things in life. They want success, growth, they want to progress, they want guidance. And if you ask around, who isn't a person who wants all of this? Any person will want all of these, right? So people want this. Now what we need to find probably is not the people who are like us. That is very hard to find also, and especially because we've got this full 6 years now of working on this cause and a lot of experience. So I gave that up, and I decided to break the work down into pieces. And I thought that what is required to get this work done in the properly and reliably. In fact, some of the people we have in our team are way more reliable than I am myself. And so I realized that people are almost never the same, and I needn't look for the same kind of people. So once I could break down the different kinds of work that is there to be done for each kind of task, I could actually find and train people to do that. And usually it could be that maybe when something first came, I could do it once or twice. But now it would come in a volume where there are 20 instances of the same thing to be done every day. So I can't do it. And I will also need to do other things. So that thing which I could do maybe 1 or 2 units of every day, I need to break that down into what all tasks I was doing as founders. So what happens is that our brains, they think of 10 different things at the same time. Our brain is running amok with ideas, and we are just able to think of 10 things together. And but when you delegate it, it doesn't happen like that. So we think that why are people not able to think like us? Why are they not able to do work like us? Are they people who are not hardworking? Are they not committed? Are they not A-type people? But really, it's not that. It's just that their brains are not the same way as ours. And if we go and work in some other organization, it will happen the same way. For us, we will feel that we will not be able to take those jumps and leaps of faith that we expect everyone else to take when they work with us. So I broke the work down into parts, and I realized that that same thing needed probably 3 or 4 people doing 3 different tasks to be done. And if I actually got those people on that plane, I got those 3 or 4 people in and trained them. The 3 of them could do 20 units of that. They would do much better than I would. They would do it more reliably. But the difference is that what I was thinking was the job of 1 person. Actually, it was job of 3 people. The next step in the strategy is then to make sure that this unit of 3 people is working in a way which is financially viable. You can't always, what people do when they build a startup, or even if you speak to experienced people, they say, okay, hire from this industry, hire this person from this industry, hire from here. And we always think of combining what is the nearest, closest match. Okay, we pay that market salary and we add them to our team. But a lot of times that for me has failed as a strategy. It works a lot of times for people, but it's not the best. It's not the only reliable strategy. Like when people say homegrown talent, that actually is a point and meaning to that. And homegrown talent actually takes time to grow. So what is important is you hiring people for doing that kind of work. Even if they have not done similar work in the past, it has worked for us in our team that, that kind of work has happened. On the other hand, if we thought of people who have had experience for every kind of work, we took people who have experience in that work, we may not have ended up finding people at the budgets that we had. That risk was there.
I think between you and I, we have hired at least 100 people till now, most of which have been failures.
Right. And see, hiring plus working with people who work on a freelance basis, part-timers, all of that, we'd have done more than 100, much more in fact.
Okay, so
and
when you are
of the process, like I don't think anyone, when they look at hiring, they need not think of making it's not a criterion to say that how many hiring decisions of mine turn out to be right. Hiring as a process by its very nature is designed for a high rate of failure. So what is important is that at the end of the day, how many people do I have who can do the work that my organization requires? I might have looked at 200 or 2000 people. At the end of the day, if I needed 5 people and I got 5 people, I think that works. What doesn't work is not going to hire at all. And what doesn't work is hiring a ton of people, but who are a misfit for your organization.
Right. So now tell us a little more about the book. What was the process like? You were writing a book on this, so I guess you have been drawing heavily on your experience.
Yeah.
So was it like how did you go about figuring out what to write, how to structure the book? If you can tell us a little about that.
Yeah. And I'm going to use a little bit of the structure from the book itself to share. So, Ramanuj, can you share with me also a little bit about the takeaway? Like, are we looking at people who are wanting to start their own businesses or their own practice, or we're looking at people who want to write their own book? Which way do you want that?
See, honestly speaking, I think we have some people who are founders of companies today. We have our students, law students who are watching this, and others also, obviously, professionals who are watching this. We have 13 viewers right now, as I can see.
Okay.
I don't know exactly who they are, but I would say that let us talk about your book writing process.
Okay.
Because that's something that is, I think, every intelligent person's dream today is to write, to
Fine.
be able to write a book and actually finish it. Many people start writing. I have started writing a book twice. It was going great, but somewhere I got lost.
Right.
And I didn't finish that, right? So, and
Right.
I think that's the story of many, many people. So tell us a little about this process. How
Okay.
did you finish it, and how did you manage to actually plan out the entire process, write it, publish it?
Okay. So, the idea of writing a book on this topic came to me when I was talking to a friend, and I realized that I was just having a general conversation, and then I realized that I should write a book on this because there are things I want to share with the world about it. And as I said, the experience was so profound for me that, like, it was compulsive. But that compulsive emotion that is there, it will enable you, it will get you to start writing your book at best. Okay. The problem is in actually continuing to write it and in completing it. That is the difficult part about it. So what I did first was, a lot of times when I was writing the book, I was actually vomiting, right? It's work. You will be writing, there'll be a whole flurry of emotion, of things you want to write about. So I just expressed that on paper. Okay. Then there came a time when I don't, okay, there is nothing more to write. Then I can breathe and plan the book a little better.
Were you writing actually on pen and paper, or were you typing this out?
Sorry,
I think that's
I was directly typing. Okay, I typed directly on the internet. I opened a Google Doc and started typing straight away. When my first couple of flurry of brain waves got over and I had written five to 8 pages, after that I thought, let me plan this process. Okay, because if I had planned this process before that brainwave came, or when that brainwave came, if I spent time on planning the process, the problem would have been that I wouldn't have been able to express, and I would have lost that train of thought. So what happened was that when I made a table of contents, I could ensure that it was somewhat comprehensive. And this was a table of contents that I kept updating from time to time. Now, the updates were not more than 10 or 15%. Okay, but when I saw that table of contents, now I knew that this is what I'm going to write on. The next challenge was for me to identify to write all those chapters. And I did not write them in a certain sequence that I will write from chapter 1 till the last chapter. Basically, whenever I would get time, I would sit down and write maybe 1 chapter or 2 chapters. A lot of time I wrote chapters sitting in a flight. Sometimes, if I travel out of office, I was going for these mentoring sessions by what was that, MentorX. So after the session, I would sit down in a cafe and complete 1 chapter for an hour and a half, and then go back. So there were a lot of mini sessions where I would write for an hour and a half, 2 hours. There were some jumbo sessions where I would just sit. Like, there were 2 or 3 Sundays where I just sat and wrote typed basically for 4 to 5 hours each. Okay. And then at the end, there was a jumbo session where I had to proofread everything. I also asked one of our team members, Komal, who was very happy, who gladly proofread the entire book. So that was after completion. Now, one thing I used in the process, this is very important because you specifically asked that people start writing and then they get lost somewhere in the process. So there was a seminar I was doing. It was called the Effectiveness Seminar at Landmark, and this said that so how do you do something you intend to achieve? Let's say I create this goal that I want to write a book. Now I was getting connected whenever I got stopped. I did not connect to the fact that I've completed the book. I used to define something. I used to define my intention behind writing the book, and there is a specific methodology we were trained in when we pursued the program. So which is that so that trains us in defining an intention in a specific way. For me, the intention was that people in thousands of companies are able to grow their businesses in a powerful way. Okay, my intention was worded around that. Now it takes some effort to create an intention.
What is the methodology? Do you mind telling us the methodology?
No, I can share the methodology. So the methodology is around, I don't remember the technical words, but so when you say what do you intend, people, let's take it from the literal word, okay? So before starting on anything, when we have a dream, what the methodology says is first we create an intention to achieve that dream. But intention has a specific meaning. It's not a literal meaning where we say, what is your intention? Many people say, okay, my intention is I'll do this. So your intention is not a task and your intention is not an outcome. Okay. So writing the book is not the intention. Publishing the book, which is an outcome, or having say 1,000 copies being sold, that is an outcome. That is also not an intention. Okay. An intention is that what I want to, so the future of something which is expressed now. If it's a future, the future is not created, right? But what is it that will make that future be presenced right now? So then I created, and it should be in 20 words or less. And it should be something that enables you to be something or to have something. So I said that entrepreneurs across the world they are able to grow their businesses. They are growing their businesses at a high velocity. My intention was worded around that. Now, as you keep working on your project, your intention can be fine-tuned, edited, developed further. But it's necessary to have an intention at all times and to feel powerfully connected to that intention. So using one's own language actually creates that personal connect to your intention. Two people may have a similar intention, but they may language it differently, which enables that personal connect to be there. And whenever I lost, there were at least 2 to 3 times when I lost complete connect with what I was doing and why. And that is when actually going back to this exercise enabled me to work on this. And so when I wrote the intention, then I could get back to writing the book. Okay, and that was just mind-blowing for me. Then when I completed writing this, after the proofreading was done, I looked up on Amazon how to self-publish. So Amazon has a software and all of that. It says how to do it. So you can actually you can convert a Google Docs file into Word and then upload it on this Kindle page creator, which will replicate a Kindle book. It will create the table of contents, and then you can do some formatting tweaks and all of that. So that's what I did. And then I had taken a free Udemy, not a free, there was some $10 Udemy course on how to publish a book and what are the components of it. So a book has certain pages like an acknowledgements page and all of that. So I could learn about what's the structure of a book and then use that. That's how the process went. And I asked the friend, yeah.
So how I got the process, what would you say? So how many people actually read the book, or how many people paid for it? I mean, if you don't mind sharing that.
So the book, it's on Amazon, it's self-published there. So if I share it, a lot of people, there are people who buy it. So I think there are around 15-20 people who have bought it, and I have shared it. So, and I have sent some promotional introductory copies to a lot of people, around 20 people. Whoever's read the book has said they have really loved it. I haven't taken forward the publishing process. I intend to, but I haven't sort of stuck to it. I think I didn't recreate my intention for the publishing side. I think that's where it got lost. But and the other thing is that after I published it, like I just felt completely fulfilled. Like my purpose about it was complete. So I did not go further ahead with it, like because that work got created, and I let it be at that. But one thing that is there is that the Amazon process works really well. It's like clockwork. They share royalties and all of that. And I can share more about Amazon's program if you want, so that people know that how to go about it. But a lot of you, I know, whoever is watching this, if you're interested in publishing a book, you might be way more interested in promoting your work. So it will work. Like you need to figure out how to promote on Amazon and how to get readers to give you testimonials. And that is simple, but I didn't do it. I didn't stick to it. I was focusing on work and all of that, but that is doable.
All right. So, how do you want to take it forward now? Like, you have written a book which is valuable, and people who have read it have given excellent feedback. So now, how do you intend to take it forward?
I'm intending to write to a few publishers. I filled up a proposal form again, not sent it, so very similar. Like it remains to be sent, and all of us at some point in time we get stuck with our own work. We very simple, obvious things that we give advice to other people, that ship your product, make it, just send that damn mail out, man. So it's just that I have been stuck with that same thing. Okay, and I've noticed that a lot of progress gets made when we have friends and people pushing us to do what we want, and that is something that naturally happens inside of a business environment when you have co-founder, team, all of that. But sometimes in personal projects that push is not there. So yeah, so that's how.
In my personal opinion, I remember Samir Guglani, who I respect a lot in matters of startup. So Samir said that this is a phenomenal book and you must take it forward. So if
Suhai, I'm not sure. Samir had asked for feedback and he said that he wanted a lot more. He saw the opportunity for a lot more authenticity to be kept in, but that was the subject matter of another book. So I couldn't tweak around with the book. I thought that this one, as a method, as a manual, this works the best. This book is in a manual style actually. So the thing is that you can't read it like you read to enjoy literature. This is more of a book which is you see the headings, you see what. You give a quick read. Some things may apply to you, some things may not, and use what you find valuable. You can actually even, while it's written in a sequence, you can actually pick up any chapter out of sequence also and use it, because it completely depends on where the reader is in his or her business and what is the problem he's looking to solve. What it will, however, enable you to do under all circumstances is to actually enable you to delegate. Make a project out of the part you are unable to manage and delegate it to someone.
So whatever may have been your feedback from Samir, but he told me excellent things about the book and he said it's really wonderful. So I take his words.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. So I just want to know what would you say are the three best takeaways from your book?
The three best takeaways from my writing for a reader, right? Like what is the three lessons that someone else can take away
from the book? Yeah.
So there is the first section, which is more about having clarity about how your organization works and who is responsible for what. Okay, this is the first takeaway. So which means that you have your founder roles divided, you have founder designations clarified, you have a line of communication, who reports to whom between founders and the early team. That much, okay, like that, and have an organizational structure. So this is the first takeaway. Like there are 4 or 5 chapters on it, but this is the first takeaway. This is the method part of it. The other part is you need to ensure that this entire structure, it may look great on paper, but there needs to be some real alignment. Okay, so it's not about putting this onto an Excel sheet or a Word document. It's about actually looking at whether people are aligned in that team, in that organization, and in that structure. And it's not a very subjective exercise. Like if you to what people are doing and how they are behaving, you'll have a sense of the degree to which they are aligned and the degree to which they aren't. And and you need to have a team which is not misaligned. Different people will have different levels of commitment and alignment to what you're doing, but people need to not be misaligned. That is what you need to ensure. This is the first key takeaway. The second one is on hiring process, actually. How to hire people, train them, give them their task, and define what are the metrics up to which they should perform. Okay, this is the second big takeaway. The third is on how can this process be repeated over and over again, and how can founders stay connected to this. What happens is that a lot of times we tend to go into this blind hiring mode only, where everything that we imagine is to be done by someone whom we hire, and founders
in a short phrase, absentee management, where you are like, it's like, you just have hired somebody and told them, please take care of this, and you're not managing it anymore, and you said, please, it's your job. We don't want to hear anything. We don't want to hear only good news. Bad news, you deal with yourself.
Right.
And please just deliver.
Also, there are some other shades of this, that a lot of times when you start hiring people, there is this inadvertent thing that we give the work to them, tell them how to do it, and what we say about how the work has to be done is from a memory we have. 6 months back, maybe it was done that way, and we are saying that, okay, do this, do that. But on the job, that person might really face a challenge, and that person may ask us what to do now. And a lot of times we say, just figure it out, solve it, do it. These are very general statements. A lot of times people don't find actionable insights from it. Now, the people you hire and train on the jobs, they actually expect support on these at these times. You can either do it and show it to them, or you can give an insight that enables this to get done. Now, I have noticed that a lot of times we lose ourselves, we lose connect with the work, or the organizational structures keeps getting more complex as it grows. So sometimes we can give them valuable insights that, okay, why don't you say this? Why don't you do this? Which actually works, or at least gives that person something to try on, something new. And the person goes and does that. A lot of other times, we as founders are not aware exactly what it is that the person is missing. The person may also not, your team member may not specifically ask you the real thing that is the problem. So you might want to sit down and actually do the work in front of that person. And you may not know how to do the work, by the way. So you will ask 10 questions before you actually get all the data, everything you need to perform the task. Then you perform the task and show that person. And the person may be able to see that how you actually got the work done. A lot of times what we think is the key element to getting the work done is not the key element. That is very obvious and everyone figures it out. Some of the non-verbal elements, when people see us at work, they figure out, acha, ye karna hai. And that is the new stuff for them. So it's interesting how it's not necessary to verbalize everything and just actually get to the work and do it, and that enables people to do the work. So I wanted to add that to that part of absentee management which you said, because it can be in layers, and that entire world, all those layers lead to results not getting accomplished. Like we do take the same action and people respond with the same kind of inaction and absence of results. Okay, so yeah, so the third part is that how can founders get back into in and out of the organization, basically out of that process of monitoring.
So today when I was sharing this on LinkedIn like that about today's session, I promised a few things that we will be discussing, and people asked a few questions to me. One question was, how do you reach your first 1 crore of revenue? Okay, in a less time. So since you have written this book, you are the best person to tell us, like, this is a question everybody has. How do I reach my first 1 crore in revenue very quickly? What did we do right that we reached it? I think within slightly more than a year, we reached our first 1 crore revenue. What did we do right?
Yeah, the velocity we had in the first year was hitting, was that 1 crore one. We accomplished it around 1.5, 2 years. What did we do right? I think there were certain parts of the idea about training people, then about we got a lot of support from NUJS in terms of the certification. Then the market identification in terms of what kind of learning do people want. We identified a specific problem and a way to communicate it. Now the thing is that we might say in our first year we got that success, but there was our final year at law school where we actually tried and tested out tons of things around law as to how to package law for people and what do people want. Do they want legal risk management? Where are they getting stuck? What are the problems they're facing with law? What are the problems they're facing with lawyers? What are some of the market failures? And we realized that one is some people want legal service, which is being serviced by law firms. The second thing we identified is that this is the kind of legal education they want. So we identified people want legal education on business laws, whether it is entrepreneurs who can benefit from an education because they can realize much more value from it than they could from legal service priced at the same amount. I mean that if they pay 20,000 or 30,000 for a course, they can realize value more than 30,000 if it's educational for them. The second is that it was on business law, so it will actually enable them.
It has to be much more amount, right? Like if they're spending a course 30,000 on a course, then they probably need to realize the value of
3 lakhs,
1.5 lakh in the first year itself. Like otherwise they'll not buy it. I mean, that's one of the things that if you're offering something out of which they're not going to make a lakh or 1.5 lakh within a year or 1.5 years, I think within a year is a reasonable time to look at. If they're not going to realize 1 lakh to 1.5 lakh, nobody's going to pay 30,000 for that.
Correct.
I think, now that you're saying this, I look back and I can see that there is so much that happened much before. Like when I was working with IMS, I was learning how courses are created. I was learning, I was working on IMS courses and like I was creating a
lot.
And when we launched Bar Hacker, like in our final year in 2010, we launched Bar Hacker and we got 50,000 worth of sales, right? Yeah. Maybe 70,000. I don't exactly remember.
We had some 40,000, yeah. And after paying costs, we could only go out for we could go out for a dinner. That is all.
Yeah, but what happened? I remember one thing is that our courses got copied in the next bar exam, right?
Yeah.
Nobody bought. The first bar exam we sold some, and in the next bar exam nobody bought because the entire material was out and getting circulated in colleges.
Yeah.
And while that was a debacle, it was better that it happened when we were still in college and did not quit a job to start something. Yeah. Because that experience kind of ensured that when we were starting our own courses, we ensured nobody could copy it like that anymore.
Yeah.
So that, I think even that was a huge learning.
Yeah, that was a huge learning.
There were things that happened that enabled us to do it right.
Yes.
So I think the biggest takeaway that enabled us to do One Crore is like our prior experience in running similar businesses.
Yeah. But a lot of times, in addition to that, so you said the value that someone gets out of a 30,000 course should be more than 1.5 lakh. Now, a lot of times people start a business or a venture in an area where you don't know why or who would pay for it. Now, we thought, okay, that entrepreneurs and working professionals would pay. And our initial 70-80% customers were law students. But that was a surprise for us, and it also helped us. But for them, the value was even more immediate than for an entrepreneur, because they would.
It was shocking for us. We thought that we are making a course for entrepreneurs and managers who want to learn the law. Having seen L&T sending 30 of its managers to NUJs to study business laws, where it was a very, they were just learning Companies Act and Contract Act, which we felt was not directly relevant. Now we thought that we'll make a much more relevant course, and then we'll reach out to all these managers and entrepreneurs who want to learn the law and can benefit from the same. In reality, about 30-40% of them were working professionals plus entrepreneurs, and rest of them were lawyers and law students. It was shocking for us, right? It was a huge learning.
Yes, and we then obviously focused a lot on the lawyer and law student market also. And okay, going back to the question of what all did we do right that enabled us to get there. I think the other thing also was, so we worked at a law firm, which is an experience I found useful in terms of what kind of professional service people expect and how to do work in a professional way.
If you look at it that way. Anyone who has worked in a law firm will say, "You worked for 1 year in a law firm. That's nothing. That's you
Yeah,
know nothing
people
about."
laugh.
Okay, there is a joke like, "What do you know about a law firm?" If you work for a 1 year in a law firm, no matter what law firm it is, you don't know anything about practice. But in reality, we are dealing with people who are aiming for that job, and we could train people for that job, because the struggle of the first year law legal associate is something that we are acutely familiar with,
Yeah.
having done it just like that year, and then we are launching our course. So we are exactly knew that what challenges they would be facing, and I think we were able to cater to that very well because of our personal experiences.
Yeah, that personal experience part is very important, because the problem that we felt was personal to us. We could actually work in a very dedicated way to solve that, just that one problem, and that work. And also, it was not just the law firm experience, but before that, we were talking to companies, we were participating in Startup Saturday. So we were actually seeing some problems people face. We were not seeing only what is the work to be done. Like, if there is somebody who just works in a law firm, a lot of times I've seen lawyers dismiss, lawyers know agreements, drafting, and all of that, but some of the commercial nuances they dismiss as a matter of negotiation and commercials, and they say that clients decide this out of negotiation. But when we were dealing with entrepreneurs, these boundaries got blurred, because they would ask us anything, that how do I negotiate this? How do I do this? This guy has done this. So we got directly in touch with the problems they face with in business, or in business, and we started using legal solutions, or a specifically drafted clause to solve that. Now, what that enabled us to do is, it enabled us to view entire situations, like everything that we do as a problem people face in business, or let's say in any other area we take up, and then how to tackle that. In fact, I was myself not aware that we were subconsciously doing it until a recent workshop we had organized in the incubator at Techno India, where a lot of law students had come from Calcutta, and the theme, actually what they took away from the workshop, was find a problem to solve for a client. That is what they would take on. And we realized that this is the real thing we were doing, because if you find the problem, then finding the solution is a much easier exercise. You can find your direction, you will come up with a solution. Most people don't find the problem they want to solve in that much detail. They don't work on it.
So I think the takeaway from this should be that one thing we found that enabled us to earn that 1 year quite fast, without any funding, without anything else, without having much team also at that point of time, was that we figured out how to, what is the problem that we were trying to solve. That was very clear.
Yes.
And we found the solution, and we built that solution, and we sold that solution day in and day out.
Yeah.
And people understood what we were trying to say, and although it was a very new concept, we found a lot of early adopters who were very happy to give it a shot.
Yeah.
And that worked for us.
So I think having early adopters, and one of the experts in business has said that find 1,000 paying customers or find 100 paying customers. I think that is the important milestone to reach, not a turnover milestone, which will go. But if you know, like 100,
We found our first 100 paying customers within 2 months.
yeah,
That was I remember celebrating that day when we had our first,
yeah,
we 20 lakhs in revenue. That time we had not even built really the course. We had just one or two modules ready, and we got it
yeah,
kind of launched, and we sold
yeah,
it. Both of us were calling, we had a landing. People came and subscribed, left their phone numbers. We had some prank calls, but you'd sit and call every day and you talk to people. And I think that was a great learning also, what people want, what they want.
And the way we built the product also was on on a minimum viable product is what we were building, and we were iterating based on customer feedback. We fixed the product style and design and curriculum only when we had enough feedback from the market, and we didn't overinvest. We were being very frugal. Those were important things.
Great. I think those are the things that held us in good state, and we are finally able to, generate enough money to build a team. And so why don't we talk about this next? And I know that anybody starts a company, they are going to find this very soon, that how do you hire your first employees. I remember, I went to this company which was at that point of time doing amazingly well. Um, uh, we use Exotel, which is the competitor of Exotel. I'm forgetting the name.
Nolarity.
Nolarity. So I was in Nolarity office, and I went and asked the founder that, how can I hire my first employees? And that was such a difficult thing. We had money in the bank to pay people, but nobody will join us. So, we were it was hard. So why don't you tell us a little about that? What did you write in your book, and share some of the good insights from it? Like, how do you hire your first employees? So when I asked that in Nolarity, the answer I got was that, talk to your batchmates. There might be somebody who's willing to join. But I think that's much easier when you have a funding, but lot difficult when you're not getting your funding, you're not mentioned on Economic Times. If you don't raise funding, you don't get covered anywhere at all.
Right.
So how did you tell us what learnings did you share from that?
Okay, so in reality, the first employee we found was someone who could do, for whom I found you. Like, we had divided our roles also for hiring people for us. So I had met that person working as an assistant in a court, providing stamp papers, and she just seemed to be very diligent. And I asked her to come over and meet us. And one day she came over to office, and I asked her if she knows accounts. She did, and it was a sort of a trial. And then I hired her. But that was just a matter of luck. That was by chance I found. But you do find people you want to hire.
Our first employee?
Sorry?
Wasn't Amartya Bagha our first employee?
I think we had hired Reena before. Amartya was afterwards. We had had a couple of people before.
Okay, we had Reena and then we hired Amartya.
Yeah.
But okay, so tell us about little more about that.
About?
Because one critical hire was Amartya, who went on to hate our content and the blog, and really made a lasting impression, was Amartya. So tell us about how.
So I'll start. So Amartya had, I think, written an email to you. You had published some LinkedIn post or something, and then he had written an email to you, and your profile is like very, very widely circulated. People know you, so he had written to you, and then you shared his link with me, and then I gave him certain tasks to do. So you gave it to me to figure out whether he's suitable. I gave him a lot of tasks to do, which would actually be suited to the work we need to perform. And somewhere prior to that, we had figured out that one good way to hire, instead of taking interviews and then confirming people on a salary or a fixed remuneration, is to give them real life trial tasks to perform for the business. And if that works out, then we will hire them. So we gave those tasks to Amartya, and he performed those really well. And so we confirmed him. And after that, then of course he did really well. First, he was working in the content team and exclusively on just the content side. Later on, he actually moved on to a lot more other aspects about how our product functioned. But one thing when we need to hire, I think what's important is, so people say, oh, I want to hire one person. Like, there's a lot of loose talk about, I want to hire a marketing guy, I want to hire a sales guy, I want to hire for this, I want to hire an operations guy. But it's very important to identify actually what is the work that needs to be done by the person you hire. And next is how to do that work. Okay, a little sense of that is very important. Then you create the job role. What is the position you want to hire that person in? One thing I learned later is that just giving everyone a designation of manager may not be the best idea. I learned that from Ratul. Like, we started with letting anyone have whatever designation they wanted. Then we started giving everyone a managerial designation. But it helps when you actually make your remuneration and everything to have you should have a sense of what people in that line of work, what designations they have, whether it's executive, associate, manager, so that they have a sense of their seniority and level of work. Okay, that will help you in creating remuneration packages also. Otherwise, there will be a mismatch. So that's the job position. After the job position, you need to write the job description. Job description needs to be accurate in terms of what work they are doing. Now, when you have a call with them, you need to be prepared with this. A lot of times, because of the work that is the volume of work that's there in a startup, we don't care to go, or we can't afford to go into this level of detail, and we make the call and we talk to the person. What happens is the other person may not get inspired, or that person may get scared, or that person may just not have the willingness to try this out, may not be interested. So what's important is that when you have the call, you move that to the next level, where you share that job responsibilities list with the person, or you share the trial tasks with the person whom you want to hire, and they can move on to this.
So I will share a bit of my experience with this. I realized that the initial employee will look at the founder, and if they're inspired by what you are doing, if they're inspired by your vision, they'll join. And these are people who are difficult to find. Yes, you have to go far and wide looking for them.
Right.
But these are people who join you because, in a way, they see themselves in you and they identify with the cause, and they identify with the kind of person that you are, and they want to be a part of it. I think finding that kind of people, and it's not going to be easy. It's like finding a friend. It's pretty much like that. When you're starting a company and you don't have funding, you don't have people excitedly talking about you and some VC referring you, whatever, in that case, it's pretty much you are going to, imagine you are starting a social movement or a political party. You'll have to find your initial followers, literally, people one by one. And starting a company is also like that, and that happened to us.
Right.
You really had to find people who believe in it, people who get inspired by it. If I look back and think about it, Amartya was one critical hire that I think, as much as you or I have contributed, maybe he has contributed as much. And that could happen because he did not want to work in a law firm. He did not want to work in a company necessarily at that point of time. He was working with Reliance, which is a brand name. And he was not satisfied with that. He wanted to do something out of the ordinary. He wanted to contribute. He wanted to learn. And he found that opportunity with us. And I think that's critical, that you give people opportunity, you give people space, you give people a lot of respect, no less than you. Because you're a founder and they are employees, it's not like the initial employees are as much as a founder, co-founder.
Yeah.
And you have to give them that respect, if not that designation. And I think that's something that worked for us.
You have to give them the respect, you have to guide them, you have to appreciate them. And everything you said about vision, that's the first thing, okay? What I said is about the how. How do you go about it? But it starts with the vision, because otherwise it doesn't happen. Like I remember once, the second finance person we had, once Reena had left, we had Najmus. And I had gone to a management college, IMS, to give a presentation. And he had expressed interest. And it was just, it was unexpected. It was a pleasant surprise. And that worked. So yeah, people identify with the vision. And then
absolutely. From IMS, where you made the presentation, 3 people joined us. One of them never showed up.
Yeah.
2 of them showed up.
And
one stayed back.
Right.
And the other person left after 3-4 days, I think.
Yeah.
That's a common experience. Like people join you and they just leave. Wow, this is too difficult. We had people who joined us and said, what the hell? This is just too difficult to do, and I don't see the end of this tunnel. I am not going to bet my career and my life on this.
True.
Yeah. So yeah, you need some adventurous people like you are. If you're a founder, you're probably adventurous, and you need people like that who's going to bet their career on something so uncertain.
Yes.
So we are well past 9 p.m., which is our designated time to finish this conversation. We have a few questions. We'll take a couple of those questions. And I know this conversation could go on and on and on. We could talk about so many different things. But let's just take a few questions. We have a question from Barsha Talukdar. She's asking how much English is important for law. Okay, this is not relevant to the conversation, but do you want to take that, Abhyuday? I think she's asking you this question, like, how important is English for law?
For building a career as a lawyer, English is, I think, clear written and spoken communication in English is very important. But it's not a, so it's a deal breaker, I think, if you don't know English. But people assume it to be too hard or more difficult than it actually is. I think you're the best person to speak on that, Ramanuj. That at one point in time, English was a hard and insurmountable obstacle for you, and yet you dealt with it. And it took you a year to deal with it, I think. And even after that, you
That took me like a whole 1 hour to discuss that, but I can say that, having been to, till I went to NUJS, I went to a Bengal medium school throughout my life, and I was in it was a challenge for me to write exams in English for the first time in my life when I was in NUJS, and even in the entrance exam, it was a challenge. Uh, However, I would like to say that English is important in India, no matter what you do, to be perceived amongst the elite. So if you want to be an elite lawyer, you want to be one of the well-known lawyers, English is, you cannot help but know English, but you can very much have a career in law without being very good in English. If you ask this question to me in English, then, and I can see it's a nice sentence, there is no grammatical mistake in it. And if you can write this sentence, then you can probably, enough English to practice law, to be honest, especially if you're practicing at a district court level where almost everybody is arguing in a local language. In fact, not knowing a local language is an insurmountable barrier for practicing
in
in a district court or even in a high court, because all your documents are in local language. So you know enough English to practice. If you know enough local language plus English, I think it works.
Yeah.
I mean, there are too many lawyers I know who earn upwards of 5 lakhs a month in the district court, getting bail applications and fighting petty criminal cases also. A lakh, 2 lakhs is no issue at all. And they don't know good English. They can't speak grammatically correct English. They cannot write grammatically correct English. And most people who know English will laugh at their English. Irrespective, there are a lot of English speaking people, in a lot of English speaking lawyers who are not earning 1/10 of what those lawyers are earning. So it's about you producing a result for your client in the end of the day as a lawyer. If you can learn English, if you have time, give it a shot, learn it. It's going to help you further. But if you're not great at English, it's not really an impediment for you to be a lawyer. But yes, if you want to practice in a law firm, if you want to work as an in-house counsel, then you better know English well. You should be able to write perfect English. You should be able to speak good English so that you can continue to grow. Otherwise, people judge you. That's the reality of India, that people judge you for not being able to speak English or write English. So this is one thing, but I really don't think if you're going to practice law, if you're going to practice criminal law, civil law at a district court or even a high court level, to be honest, that you have to know speak or write perfect English. Absolutely not necessary. People write petitions in broken English and still get orders. And then that's what counts at the end of the day. So this is not a topic that we are discussing today, so let's move on. We have some appreciation from Shafina Salahuddin, who's saying this is amazing. Komal is asking, please also speak for people who wish to write their own books. Komal, we are looking forward to reading your book. Sarjana is asking for readers and also for the budding writers. Okay, so yeah, for readers and budding writers, what's your advice, Abhyuday?
Start writing.
Don't be
start writing.
Start writing.
Like wherever you get stopped, don't postpone. That is the only thing that is the problem with writing. And write anytime, anywhere, write anything, you will find a way to connect it. Don't get stuck with where does this fit in my table of contents, how to put this here. Use your own language, write it. Because today you might write in a way which is like, when I read my writing, a lot of times I think, why am I over explaining so much? But that's how I wrote then, and I might write in a different way later. Or in my proofreading, I will edit it and make it more direct and shorter. So all that will get figured out, but you need to just start writing. Then
Keep typing, not even writing. Keep
yeah,
typing.
typing.
Type-
If you
Keep
can't
typing.
type, so I this is one thing I just want to share. A lot of times writing feels personal and typing a lot of times doesn't. So if you want to have the experience of pen and paper, you can write some things like table of contents or headings or plan. You can do some planning on paper, later on put it on computer. A lot of times when I face a computer, I'm quite confused as to what to. When I face a computer, I'm like, what do I type? And so I use pen and paper also to plan things. Just sharing that.
Great. I think this is a fantastic discussion of Abhyuday. We have covered quite a bit of ground. Of course, you could have a whole, like number of 1 hour conversations on how to build a company, what goes into it,
Yeah.
and even I will enjoy it thoroughly. I don't know about the
we can
viewers.
we can do a second one later based on viewer feedback on what aspects they want. So we could zero in on different aspects.
So tell us, what else would you want to hear from our iPleaders journey, and what are the questions you want answered, and we would be happy to share whatever knowledge we have very authentically without hiding anything, and whatever we know, we are happy to share.
There is one
And
thought I would like to plant in our viewers' minds,
sure,
especially if they are lawyers or law students, is that there are too few. That law can be applied in so many ways, and there is an opportunity for maybe thousands of business ventures around law in India. Okay, and people haven't tried to do that. And there is enough market opportunity for everyone to make a living and a career and a business with it. So
absolutely. If you want to do a startup around law, there has never been a better time in history, and you can start a law firm, yes, and make a lot of money. You can do a legal startup and maybe not make so much money, but I mean, if you think that, like, there are so many broken issues, like, broken systems around law in India. There could be literally, like, this is not my word, this is Vakil Search founder Rishikesh Datta. Yeah, and he says that there could be at least 100 companies worth 100 crores each, and we are not worth 100 crores. Okay, there are companies, there are possibilities for 100 companies that are 100 crore each in the legal domain in India. I could, off the cuff tell you some ideas, and anybody who can go and build it, build it. Like, have you thought that in India, we can, the judges training, the law that is taught to judges is inadequate. You could tie up with government and train the judges through online medium. Okay, and if you can do it, you can build a 100 crore company. You can. There are no online training for judicial exams. There are no online training courses for Delhi University exam or Punjab University entrance exam for law. You could do that. These are in education domain. There is no software which is amazing for court management in India. Somebody who builds an amazing court management system in India could literally rake in hundreds of crores. There are no reliable online arbitration institutes in India. If there is one, I would be the first one to subscribe to it and give it work. There are no reliable way to you know uh, resolve consumer dispute. Every company in India is looking for a system which can help them to resolve consumer disputes faster, quicker, cheaper. It's not there. uh, then I could go on and on and on. There are so many broken things. Not one entrepreneur can fix it. We need at least 1,000 entrepreneurs in the legal domain today. And because lawyers are not technology developers, maybe lawyers are, so we don't have those systems today. Go network with engineers, go talk to engineers, build systems. It's possible. Like, we have tons and tons of engineers in India, 15 lakh engineers graduating a year, and a lakh lawyers graduating a year. I can't believe that as a country, 120 crore population. Today, if you want a solution for adoption, there is no online solution for adopting kids. You cannot go and see, like, there's no easy online process for adopting a kid. There's no easy process for getting restaurant licenses. There's no easy online process for 100 different things. Flipkart is big. It's $20 billion, but you can build $1 billion legal startup out of India. I mean, I'm waiting for that day. I am working on it. I want to get there. But I believe that today's entrepreneurs can if legal entrepreneurs, if you want to be a legal entrepreneur, it's the time. The technology has already surpassed the legal world. It's time for you to step forward, build something which is valuable. Yeah, Abhyuday, you want to add something?
So that is what was what I wanted to say to them. So yeah.
Okay, great. So we are at 9:16 p.m. Naturally, when Abhyuday and I sit together, uh, we start talking. It gets late, much later than we have. We have overshot our time limit by 25%, 26%. Let's finish this conversation. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening to us. All the best. We will be back tomorrow again 8 to 9 p.m. Hope to have you back. Thank you so much. All the best. And subscribe to our channel, LawSikho, so that you get all the notifications. Even if you miss the live conversations, you can watch them later. Thank you very much.
What you want us to cover next on this, around this area.
Write to us, comment, do whatever. We want to cover a lot more interesting things, and we need your feedback for that. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.